Alrighty, carrying on. So we're looking at studies, and we've looked at IVs and DVs, we've drawn conclusions. Now we're looking at causal relationships. So we're really focusing on the true experiment here. And why is it that laboratory experiments can demonstrate these? And so obviously we're going to be looking at controls in experiments. A cool recap activity, verbal tennis. Takes no planning. You just pop up a topic, and how it works is students are in partners, and one person serves by just saying a word related to that topic, and their partner has 5 seconds to return by saying a different word related to the topic. And they bounce back and forth using a different words every time, until one person takes longer than 5 seconds, or they repeat a word, and then their partner scores a point. And then so you can just pop up, if we're doing this works well sort of halfway through a unit, towards the end of a unit, when you've got lots of topics to cover. So you just pop up a term. Now, a couple of additional rules you can have. They can challenge. So if you've given them some traffic lights, they can hold up a red card, which means they've said something that's kind of barely relevant or not relevant, and they need you to check, and you can be the judge. If you've got really competitive students, they like this. Some students aren't that competitive. And the other way they can challenge their partner by, if the partner says a word and they don't think they can define it, they know what it is, they're just saying the word, then they can say, challenge, define it. And if that kid can't do it, then the other person scores a point. If they can do it, then the person who can define it automatically wins the point. I hope that makes sense. I've got a post on the blog that explains it maybe a bit better than I just have. Quick Q&A. Any questions? Now's a good time as well to ask, do they see any psychological phenomena? Do they see any behaviors, people acting in ways, or have they seen anything in the news, like trying to tap into what they see around them? And doing that throughout the course is a really fun way to get them thinking about psychology in the real world. And then I like to introduce this, develop this fictional drug called Remember All, because I think drug trials are a really good way to get the basics of experimental methodology. So I just tell the kids, and you can say that you've developed it, you've got this drug, and how are we going to test if it works? All right, and so it's pretty simple, right? So we've got this drug, and just let them try and solve the problem. If they finish early, they can go on and read the lesson in the textbook, and there's the space in their workbooks for them to write this. All right, and then just discuss as a class, what did they do, how would they solve it? Then we get a bit of chalk and talk, introducing the idea of extraneous variables, what these are. And then they try and identify any potential extraneous variables in their experimental design. I wouldn't try and worry about distinguishing between extraneous and confounding variables this early in the course, since they're so similar. But just get them thinking about, okay, how might I control for this? So they might say, well, okay, maybe some of our participants have just a better memory than the others, and all right, well, how might you control for that? Or all right, maybe age or language might be a factor. So those are the things that they might come up with. All right, then finally, just a little bit of chalk and talk about what a laboratory experiment is, otherwise known as a true experiment, and this, given those two examples, and a bit of introduction to the difference between treatment and control groups before they get into answering the guiding question. And just a reminder as well, these guiding questions you'll see in the teacher workbook, the answers don't have to be long. They're often just maybe one sentence, usually a maximum of 4 or 5 sentences. So they're not heaps, but they do require, they're not just basic surface memorization, parroting back answers. They require seeing how things are connected, and that takes a little bit more careful thinking. And I would just remind them to keep up with their key terms, because if you use the test, they will be tested on this at the end. All right, then, so we've done causation. Next lesson, logically, correlation.